All right, coach, we literally talked about this 2 seconds ago, but you just told me, we're celebrating Black History Month here in the month of February, but every day is a celebration of Black History Month. I don't want to take credit for those words. Those are the words you literally just said to me 2 minutes before we started recording. So that's not me, that's all you. And you said, you want to celebrate the people who have paved the way before you in your career and your life, but also, there's more knowledge out now. There's more information about things that have happened in the past, and it needs to continue that way. So as we celebrate, what are your thoughts on Black history, not just a month, but what it needs to be?
Well, like I said, it's an everyday thing. Black history, and I've heard this many times, is American history.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try to set aside a month, and it bugs people that we even talk about it for a month and really put a spotlight on it. And I'm not just Black in February. Okay, I'm Black every single day of my life, and we should be celebrated just like everything else. And in this game of basketball, we're doing better as
Mm-hmm.
head coaches, getting opportunities, but the numbers are still skewed.
Mm-hmm.
They should not be the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, I've just been very fortunate that I'm one of the guys that got picked to be able to be a head coach. But
Mm-hmm.
there's so many guys before me that were probably better at this than I am. And there's probably some young guys doing it right now that would be better if they got an opportunity, and I'm one that's playing a role and trying to be successful so more guys get a chance,
Yeah.
and I'm close with the guys around here, Shaheen and Kevin Baggett, Reggie Witherspoon, guys that I was just in the MAC with. But I'm close with a lot of Black coaches across the country, and you see when we get chances, guys do extraordinary things, and we just have to change the narrative that Black men aren't head coach material,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to do well. But I also saw John Thompson talk. We shouldn't be held to have to be perfect at these jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've we've lifted some things up at Monmouth. We've had some tough years, but overall, we've really moved the needle for our school.
Yeah.
And while I've been the head coach, and it's all hands on deck, and it's not just me, it's everybody here. But I am a Black head coach, and truly feel like at our school we've moved the needle, and we
Mm-hmm.
still need to move it more.
Yeah, still need to move it more. And you're raising up gentlemen. I mean, you have two gentlemen in the house, your kids, and then you've got an entire roster this year. That roster changes every year. So, how have you been able to kind of educate your kids and just speak that narrative into them, and in hopes that it continues to ripple, outward and just move the needle, like you said?
Well, I live every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we talk about all these things. We sat down and talked about the young man who the 29-year-old who got beat by the cops last week and passed away. And we have these conversations, and I have it with him all the time. Just being a Black man, when you get in your car and you're leaving home, you're not sure that you're coming back, and we just assume all these things that we're going to be here and we're not going to run into things that give you problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I live every day and explain to them the things that I've gone through and
Mm-hmm.
the things that I've learned. And I'm an edgy guy a lot of times, and if you get pulled over by the police, you can't be edgy. Okay, but what happens with me is I get super nervous because of all the things I've seen over my 54 years. I get nervous. Well, that causes some nervousness on the police officer.
Yeah.
So we try to talk about things. So if they get in these situations, they've heard something before on how to respond and try to carry themselves a certain way so they can make it home. So we're not talking about them. And every day when you're a Black male, you pay attention to these things. You just do. It is part of who you are, and you have to, because there's things out there that anybody could get you, but with a Black man, there just seems to be a lot more where things can trip you up. And I try to stay in front of them so these young men can make good decisions before they get put in something. But definitely, if they get in a situation, make good choices right then so you can make it home.
Mm. Yeah, that's serious. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you for being honest with me. And I mean, just looking back on your career, the things that you've had to deal with, and yet to be in the position where you are, what's gone into that? It takes a village, right? You've had people open doors for you. Like you said, you've been given these opportunities. But what does that look like in your journey specifically, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, with me, I made some mistakes when I was a young guy at Carolina, and I had my family, my
Mhm.
mother and father, and my brothers and sister always so supportive. I had Coach Smith, who
Mhm.
was the most powerful man in the state of North Carolina, on my team. And he knew me as a kid, and he knew me intimately. He knew everything about my family, and he knew I was this good kid that was making bad choices.
Mhm.
So I was fortunate to have him. I'm very fortunate to have Kevin Stallings being in my life when I was making some bad choices as a coach. I'm sitting in this seat now when, 20 something, 26 years ago, I made some bad choices at Illinois State, and Kevin Stallings could have fired me, and he didn't. And
Mhm.
Rick Greenspan was the athletic director, and he could have fired me, and he didn't. And they felt like my positives outweighed my negatives. But sometimes when you make the mistakes that I made, you don't get to explain that to anyone, and you just get fired. And if they would have fired me, I would have never had this opportunity. So I had them in my corner, helping me when I was a younger guy. Dr. Marilyn McNeil was the athletic director that said, this guy is the right guy to be the head coach. I'm not worrying about what he did when he was 19 and 20. So it takes a whole bunch of people, to be in your corner throughout your life when you're doing good and bad,
Yeah.
and I've had some really, really good people in my life. In college, I had Phil Ford.
Mhm.
Coach Williams was helping, but Phil Ford played a major role in because we had some of the same issues. Phil struggled with some of the things I was walking into struggling with, and he really, really spent time with me trying to talk to me about it. I had Jimmy Black in my life when I was a young guy and didn't think I needed anyone helping me with decisions. And he was an older Carolina point guard that truly took the time to sit with me and explain some of these things to me, how I was feeling, let me know on some of them that he felt the same way, but
Wow.
there's a different way of handling it.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
my best friend is Rick Fox. And, I'm an edgy guy. Rick is more laid back. And he and I had these conversations. We're both biracial guys, and I was a lot more ready to go than Rick was in some situations. And Rick would say, King, I feel the same exact way. Exactly. I'm hurt and mad just like you, but how I'm going to approach it is a different way.
Mm.
And they're probably going to hear how I approach it better than how you want to just go knock the door down and yell at everybody
Right.
about it. He was like, there's other ways of getting this done, man. And so I had friends helping me. I had males and females, black and white, but
Mm.
people just being good to me to help me have a bright future. And even as a grown man, help me continue to make the right choices to help lead other men.
Wow. And we were just talking about, before the call, like how you're still in positions where you're learning how to make decisions in different seasons of life that you've not experienced before. And then, how have you seen that be beneficial though? Because like, you're able to pour back now into your kids and in your team. And so now you're the person in the position of like, hey, there's better ways to handle this, or so have you seen yourself now grow into that person who really is pouring it out?
Well, I'm a coach that's going to give you every opportunity. I'm going to meet you where you are. I remember those days when I was the kid on the other side of it, and I tell these guys all the time, you're very fortunate that I had Dean Smith in my corner
Mm.
because he stayed with me every single time. He never got shaky. He never thought was like you're not going to make it. He never did that to me. He kept on the side of King. You're a good kid
Yeah.
from a good family and you're
Mhm.
making really bad choices right now.
Mm.
And I'd be crying in his office and thanking him. And then something else would happen. And he'd be like, King, you're still that good kid.
Yeah.
I'm not understanding why you keep doing these things. Are you forgetting what was important to your parents when you said you wanted to be here? And you
Wow.
know, and then you're crying again. And he showed me that you don't give up on kids.
Mm-hmm.
I was a kid. It didn't matter. I made it to Carolina. It didn't matter that I was a strong built guy that could play basketball and other sports. None of that mattered. He cared about me as a kid and wanted me to get to the good parts of what he saw could happen for me. So when other people thought, get him out of here, you could get a better player, you could get a better person, he said, I made a commitment to him. And he hasn't done the things wrong that would make me not stay committed to him.
Hmm.
And I do that at Monmouth. There's been kids that have overstepped some things, and you don't just get rid of kids.
Yeah.
You have to step back and understand they're young people, and they're gonna make some choices that are wrong. And if I'm their coach and been telling them, work with you, I'm gonna work with you, I'm gonna work with you. Oh, until you do something I don't like, and then I'm just gonna push it to the side and get another kid. I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
And I go and right now I think our kids kind of feel like, well, I know he's going to stay with me, and I'm trying to get them to understand that part too. Don't take it for granted. You know, you might make some choices that get taken out of my hands. And
Right.
I'm going to want to still help you, but don't tie my hands by going too far, because then I'm the coach of Monmouth and I represent Monmouth University and a lot of people. So if you overstep too far, Monmouth is going to tell me, hey, my man, you don't get to go over there with him.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a family to take care of, so it would be a tough thing right then. So we try to do it every day with
Mhm.
these young men, and not just the young black men, the young white men. And we talk about all angles of everything that they might come across and try to give them some things to work through when it's hard.
Mm. And choosing when it's hard. That's like what I keep like learning from this conversation is it's a choice, it's always a choice
Mhm.
to stick with somebody no matter what's happening. It's a choice. Not a want to, but yeah, a need to. And just circling back to even what you said in the beginning about like it's a month of February. So we're doing this in the month of February, but it's every day. And so how do we as a conference individually behind closed doors in the public, doesn't matter, how do we celebrate every single day the history of Black history?
Well, I think you talk about it. We have these outside of February. You do it all through the season. You do it during the summer, and you just celebrate the people that came before. You celebrate the people that are going through it right now. Um, and you just keep it in the forefront. And we don't go away for 11 months. We're
Mhm.
still very active in the world and everything you see. And it's not putting down white accomplishments when you talk about black accomplishments or you praise someone who's black. That's not saying the white people are wrong or bad. That's has nothing to do with it. And when
Right.
you talk in terms of saying positive about black people and someone jumps to, well, what about white people? Well, your frame of mind is totally wrong right now. We did not say anything negative about anything white. And especially with me, my mother is white. My
Mhm.
wife is white. I just don't get caught up in that.
Mhm.
I get caught up in right and wrong. And when I see something that's wrong, I'm gonna call it. And when I see it's right, I'll high five you. But to just talk about it in 1 month and act like now we talked about it for you guys. Go ahead now we're back to normal. And that to me it just doesn't feel great. You know, I think this is an everyday thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's great that we really put it up in February, but it should be every other month also.
Mhm. Taking all that in. Thank you so much, Coach. It is seriously such an honor to talk about these things and choose to talk about it all the time, not just this
Mhm.
month. So
And
yeah.
just one more. I just with Coach Thompson,
Hmm.
Tubby Smith, um, Leonard Hamilton right now, Mike Anderson.
Hmm.
These guys been doing
Yeah.
this. I've been fortunate to be the head coach for 12 years. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just hard. And there's more now. But think about when John Thompson, I was a kid, the narrative got painted so much against him.
Mhm.
I didn't like him. I was a
Mm,
Syracuse fan. So I was like, man, this man is just mean to his players. He's all this stuff. That's terrible that that was the narrative. He
yeah.
was a trailblazer doing better than anybody ever. And we tried to paint him as this bad man. And now everybody in the country has read his book and it's like he was the greatest ever. And it's like, well, why didn't we do that for him when it was 85 and Pat
Yeah.
Ewing was getting called all this stuff? We tried to be mad at John Thompson for protecting his kids
Yeah.
when other coaches didn't have to do that. And maybe they wouldn't have stood up for Pat Ewing and his kids the way John Thompson did. So we had a blueprint from him and the coaches that even came before him. Tubby Smith at Kentucky. Okay, that's Kentucky. Tubby Smith did incredibly well there. We act like that didn't happen. No, that happened. And it was great when it happened. So there's just Clem Haskins up at Minnesota when I was a young coach and I didn't know him well. And then there's guys that didn't make the high major level that did tremendous work in helping people get to their dreams. So it's just a thing. I wish there was more Black men that get an opportunity.
Yeah.
But as long as we keep moving forward,
Yeah.
getting better at this job and at everything else, we'll be represented by the guys that get the opportunity, and then that will make more people see this is the way to go.
Yeah. So important. Thank you, coach. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you just like leading in that conversation and saying what needs to be said and even just encouraging me too to learn from you. So I'm so thankful.
Well, we all got to learn from each other,
Mm,
and like I said, half my family is white.
mm,
I learn from them all the time. They learn from me. And you can learn from anyone, and right is right and wrong is wrong. And you don't get me caught up on race things because I'm biracial.
mm.
Okay. That's just, yeah, I'll go talk this way and I'll talk that way. And you might get offended. Don't tell me how to talk because I've lived this life. Okay. Nobody
Unoffendable.
was with our family when we were being picked on as a biracial family when I was 7 and 8 years old. Nobody was sitting there trying to tell me, oh, you can only do it this way or you can do it that way. And back then, both sides picked on you when you were biracial. Okay. Now people want to tell me how I should be as a man when everybody had everything they wanted to say when I was a kid. And it's like, you don't get
Wow.
to do that. I live this.
Yeah.
So I have my take on it.
Yeah.
However I say it, it's my take. It's
Yeah.
not yours. You can have yours however you want.
Yeah.
And you're not going to tell me mine is wrong because I see it this way. I'm a biracial guy that has gotten to see a lot of things, and we need to do better than just 1 month for Black History.
Yeah.